Hello, welcome to the channel. Let's go to today's story. I'm 33 years old and my wife is 27. We got married 6 months ago, after dating for a year. We met online and, after a few dates, we started a serious relationship and quickly got married. I'm passionate about technology and I thought it was incredible that such an attractive woman was interested in me. She told me she loved me, which delighted me, and I would do anything for her at that moment. She knew I worked a lot, as I have a small business and travel a lot for work. He was rarely at home for more than a week and earned about $150,000 a year before taxes. At first, she didn't work and was completely dependent on me for her livelihood. Although she was a bit lazy, I kind of allowed her to be that way and she never showed any interest in doing housework or cooking or cleaning, so I didn't find it strange that she didn't do much of that. 6 months after the wedding, my wife broke the news to me that she was pregnant. I was out of town at the time, so I had to abandon everything I was doing to get home the next day. I took her to a clinic, where they confirmed that she was 2 months pregnant. A week later, when I came home from the office to pick up something I needed for work, I noticed her car was in the driveway, which meant she was home. When I opened the door, I heard noises coming from the bedroom, and I followed the sounds until they reached the bedroom, where I already suspected what was going on. They made it more obvious by leaving the door open, so I walked in and found them there. My wife was with another man in my own room. The first thing she said was, "This isn't what it looks like." I remembered that she was 2 months pregnant at the time and I couldn't understand how she could be doing this. I was shocked and turned my back, leaving the room. She jumped out of bed and tried to explain to me that I hadn't seen what I thought I had seen, but I was very upset. After composing myself, I grabbed what I needed and quickly left. Before leaving, I told her that she should have left before my arrival. As I drove back to work, my mind was elsewhere and I was lucky I didn't have an accident. The whole time I thought she loved me and that everything was fine between us, but I was completely wrong. I believed that my work and my absence from home contributed to what happened, as she seemed lonely and needy. I never suspected that she would be capable of cheating like that. She kept calling me and leaving voicemails, but I didn't respond. When I got to the office, I called a friend who waited for about 2 hours and then I went to my house. My friend informed me that she had taken away some essentials, so I went to the hardware store and had all the locks in the house replaced. I found out that she was staying with her family and then contacted my lawyer to discuss next steps. He advised me not to talk to his family or friends, and if he had mutual friends, just be courteous but not comment on the matter. Following her advice was essential, as I avoided possible pitfalls and complicated situations. I also coordinated a text message to her, asking when she would like to pick up her things. Therefore, she was completely dependent on me for her survival. Basically, naturally, we were totally shocked by what happened, but her main concern was that if we weren't able to reduce her child support because of what she did, that wasn't something that could be statistically proven. However, basically he informed me that most courts tend to favor the woman, and he feared that his lawyer would portray me as the enabler of his betrayal, arguing that it was my fault for not being present during the week, even though we had been together for almost a year before. And it wasn't like my work was something new. I had been in this industry for over 3 years at that point. The only difference could have been that maybe I worked an hour less or more in that period, but I was still averaging 60 hours a week, which typically ranged from 60 to 80 hours. Now, 6 years later, if I hadn't caught her, she would be better positioned today, at least that's what he claimed. This turned out to be probably overkill, but I have to admit that as a computer enthusiast, I had to follow what he said, as he was the one with experience in this matter, and obviously, he didn't have a 100% success rate. So he knew what was going on and that my lawyer was looking for evidence of infidelity to strengthen my divorce case. It was then that he suggested that I hire a private investigator to collect more evidence that we could use in court on my behalf. My attorney hired him on my behalf even though I paid him $6,200 directly. He did an excellent job, to say the least. He did really well. I hope I never need him on the other side in a similar situation. It's also worth mentioning that he did a check on me, though not as extensive as the one he did on her, just to make sure, for the lawyer's sake, that I wasn't hiding an affair or anything. Basically, after we got divorced, I couldn't prove she was at fault, and I ended up paying her child support for a few years, usually around 5, but depending on the situation, it could be until she remarries. Although this is very rare these days, I believe that my job did not allow me to have a job like hers. It didn't make sense. Not even a few days after hiring the private investigator, he'd caught her red-handed with the same man he'd found her in bed with. I made a mistake not canceling my credit card that she had access to, and she went out with her lover that night and spent about $5,000 or more. It wasn't a card with very high limits. I had it mainly to improve my credit score as I was making decent money at the time. However, as I was paying in cash most of the time, I ended up forgetting. About a month later, the private investigator discovered that she had been cheating throughout our marriage, and got 2 of the men she was involved with to agree to sign affidavits with my attorney. Additionally, the private investigator took many photos as evidence, even though they weren't really necessary. During the process, he also spoke to some of these men, and 2 of them who felt rejected by her agreed to testify that she was with them during our marriage. This greatly influenced the judge's decision. They stated that she would only contact them or respond to their messages if she initiated contact first. In summary, the private investigator was instrumental in my cause, managing to locate people she was involved with and obtaining enough evidence to prove that she knowingly cheated on me, as well as preventing me from paying child support due to her cheating and behavior. She was there from the moment I placed the call until the date I started receiving calls from her family, including harassing calls. Also, my ex-father-in-law called approximately a month ago after everything ended. After the breakup, she went on to accuse me of ruining her daughter's life. I let her scream and then suggested that my lawyer send her a copy of the data collected by the private investigator. She, of course, portrayed the situation as if I was responsible for sleeping with one of her friends, whom I had found in bed with another man. She later agreed to send the data, including the names of the individuals involved, and called back about 2 weeks later to apologize for yelling at me. After this incident, all contact with her family finally ceased. Basically, the private investigator was instrumental in finding the facts, while the attorney handled the legal formatting and preparation for the hearing. According to my attorney at the time, the courts tend to favor women in situations with children involved, which I luckily managed to avoid. Her statement to me was that they would have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that she was not the cause of the divorce in order to obtain a reduction or elimination of the amounts payable. Luckily, with the help of the private investigator and a few people she'd pissed off along the way, we were able to prove it. I still joke about lawyers, but honestly, they were worth every penny. I would never joke about private investigators, at least not the good ones. During the divorce, I did not seek compensation for expenses that appeared on my credit card. At the time, I was earning a considerable amount, about $150,000 pre-tax a year, and now I earn $250,000 pre-tax a year. So I ended up paying and discarding the expenses as a result of my mistake. I didn't write off the expenses, so I was legally responsible for them, and going after her for the money would have been pointless. I would never have recovered the value. My main concern was getting rid of her and most of the things we had as a couple, including wedding gifts and items I had bought for her. I wanted her out of my life and the memories of our marriage removed from my home. The only thing I didn't want to do was pay her $2,000 a month for about 5 years, as suggested by my lawyer. This could have been seen as a way of rewarding and endorsing her behavior, as well as funding him further during the pay period. I was willing to shoulder the other costs of the separation to ensure that it was completed within the required time frame. The divorce took 6 months and a day in California to complete in full, but now it's a much quicker process, about 6 weeks if there's no contest. My divorce was emotionally difficult, and I'm not looking for sympathy in talking about it. I hope that my experience can serve as a lesson for others, so that they can identify signs that I may not have noticed at the time. I continue to analyze and reflect on this occasionally. I know a number of people who unfortunately not only seem to enjoy creating conflict, but also taking advantage when the situation deteriorates. I simply wanted to get out, and I couldn't find any opportunity to get involved in that kind of situation. By the time I realized this, it had gone from a period of hard work to us getting back to working hard. As far as my long-term thinking goes, it benefited the things I finally had more time for. It probably would have been more tempting. My attorney reported that this cost about 12 times the child support amount, or 6 months of it. The attorney also told me that I would probably have to pay her a monthly fee for approximately 5 years. So I saved a considerable amount for sure. It is possible that this could have taken longer if the root cause of the problem was not addressed. Basically, her call went unanswered, and the judge ended up ordering her to pay $2,000 a month after going over everything during the final hearing to finalize the divorce. After the divorce became final, I couldn't see her again, but I know she's in Arizona because she tried to get credit in my name 3 times. I don't know if she decided to keep the pregnancy, but I'm absolutely sure the child isn't mine. She was probably trying to make me responsible for raising another man's baby, and I'll admit I was misled. I don't deny my role in that, that's for sure. I believe that every day she must face difficulties, even if she doesn't know me anymore. Obviously, she knows she had this situation well underway, but she played her game and lost. I continued to make slow progress in my business, which I partially own, and my income grew as well. I believe she is aware of this, or perhaps will find out at some point, whether through hearsay or in some other way. We're still in touch with some of our mutual friends, but I don't ask if she does the same. Yes, she hurt me, and tried to exploit me financially as a reward. She doesn't understand, but I'm moving on. For me, this is a greater punishment than death. It seems to be too easy for someone like her. A lot of people think I should have reacted differently when I caught her in my bed instead of pushing her away from my house. I understand what you're saying. I was there, believe me, I considered it. Later I realized it was better to turn around and leave rather than start a fight or worse. It could have easily escalated into physical violence, and I'll be the first to admit that I was duped. The more I look back, the more I realize that she never loved me, I was just a convenience to her. I take my share of responsibility for that. I provided her with the perfect opportunity, which she took full advantage of. She never came home during the week, and when I got home I was exhausted and looking forward to sleep, knowing I had another day ahead of me. All she needed to do was make sure she was home before I was, and that she was asleep when I arrived. Given the kind of person I am, I didn't really care what was going on. She always knew when I would be home, and I fell for the trap. I'm relieved that the STD tests I took 2 days later came back negative. Thank you for watching until the end of this video. Don't forget to activate the notification bell. Leave your like and subscribe to the channel. Until the next video.